Welcome back to the program. It's exactly 30 minutes past the hour. This is the big story right on KTN News. And tonight they were probing the Chandarana supermarket, a supermarket that is facing racial profiling claim after a mail was leaked there from that supermarket. In studio, I will still have Mark Bichachi, who's a communication consultant, and Wakili Ashoya Biko. Let me start with Lawyer Ashoya Biko. Now, Wakili, you've had the development there from City Hall where the governor, Mike Mbuvi Sonko, ordered the revocation of the licenses of this supermarket in question. The first question is, does he have such powers? Let's begin from there.
No, I doubt he has such kind of powers. There are procedures that have been stipulated in law for the award of business permits or of licenses, which procedures, and that is why City Hall even has departments, which departments have been conferred with the responsibility of the award of licenses to persons who intend or who are desirous of engaging in one business or the other within the capital city. And for the county governor just to come from nowhere and do, in as much as we haven't been told that there's been an official communication or that the official communication has been served upon Chandarana, but then the declaration by Governor Sonko that he, in his capacity as the governor, revoking the license as issued to Chandarana by the agencies or by the departments that have been given that mandate by the county government, that conferring upon himself or giving himself that responsibility of revoking that license in and by itself is an illegality. And that is why I was saying even before we went for the break that the management of Chandarana or their advocates would easily move the court and have such kind of revocations lifted. Yes.
Now, Mark, of course you've heard it from the lawyer there, and the fact that the supermarket still has a chance to challenge the governor in court, but the fact remains that the damage has already been done.
Well, the truth of the matter, I think that Governor Sonko's reaction was a bit knee-jerk. In the right direction, he has his heart in the right place to defend the Kenyan people and the people of Nairobi from racial profiling. Definitely, he was on the right track, but his advisors, I think, slept on the job in advising him to take such action. Instead, what he could have done is he could have called for people to simply boycott going to the supermarket. Because the truth of the matter is, and there are two incidents just recently from the United States based on racial profiling that totally changed how companies operate. Starbucks was in the news for its employees racially profiling two patrons of the franchise, and they had to take many millions of dollars to make changes to their franchise. The founder and chair of Papa Joe's, which is a pizza company in the United States, recently had to resign for simply saying the word, the N-word, on a conference call. And we need to understand that such things have consequences. But what is laughable to me, to people who are defending this particular supermarket, my question to them, let us assume that they were able to respond to your request today to be here at KTN. Which level of English would I have to speak to communicate with them? And yet they have a senior position in such an entity telling me that my proficiency in the language disqualifies me. I am disqualified simply because I am a shade darker than that particular person. That is racism. There's no defense of it. So what Governor Sonko did was wrong, but does action need to be taken? Yes, indeed.
Wakili Ashoya, you've heard the remarks there by Bichachi. Of course, he has gone ahead and given examples from other countries across the world where people have been racially profiled. Yes. Let's say other people come forward and, raise complaint against, hypothetically speaking, against this supermarket in question. Will you change your point of view?
It wouldn't really, because until when someone comes out and says that indeed they've been they've been discriminated when they visited the stalls or when they visited Chandarana supermarkets, until when that one happens, the information that we have so far is we only have one case. And we can't use this one case to actually profile and say that Chandarana have been in the habit of profiling or of discriminating people of a particular skin color or people of a particular race. So until, as at now, we can't conclusively say that Chandarana are in the habit, because then that will be speculative. And yes.
I think I think Mark has a burning issue there. Mark, I'll give you a chance to react to that, but let's probe this issue first. Let's talk about their communication strategy, if they have one.
Yes.
I'm sure you've come up with communication strategy for various organizations. I mean, if a staff goes ahead and writes this kind of a mail, does that staff in question act alone, or they receive directives from their bosses? What is the chain of command? How does it look like?
Yusuf, let me tell you. Number one, the idea of a promotion is floated by the marketing department, or a need is identified by the sales department saying there's a particular need and there's a particular demographic we need to reach to. Then the marketing department sits down and crafts a strategy to reach out to this particular demographic, whether it's above the line or below the line or through activations or raffles such as this. It is then taken to the finance directors and managers for due consideration. Then there's procurement, because there's a financial element to it, and more often than not the MD or CEO has to sign off on it. That is the procedure of coming up with any particular campaign. So by the time the information is getting out of the company, and we need to note this is not an internal email, it was not an email that was initiating a conversation. This was an email at the end of a strategy. It was an email at the side of execution of a plan. So if you are looking for a systemic problem, there it is right in the text, in the sense that by the time it has gone through this procedure and no one saw a query and asking, why are you specifically targeting white people just for the sake of them being white people, then that tells you that everyone who looked at it before that point was comfortable with it. To continue on that train of thought, it must be understood that many companies and hotels in this country, if you remember, hotels and restaurants have been known for profiling people racially. They have been known to giving preferential treatment for foreigners. This is something that happens in our nation. Let Ashoya not pretend that he's a visitor to Jerusalem. These matters and things he has heard and seen in person. This is not the only company that has been in the limelight. And we as a Kenyan public, we sat and saw what happened with SGR when our fellow citizens claimed to be sleeping on carton boxes. I know for a fact that certain buses are only for certain people of a certain race, and then the rest of us have to use different buses. That is racism, and it is a shame.
So Mark, from your point of view, apologies or whatever statement they released is not enough, right?
Apologies without action is dead. Listen, we need to be like Zacchaeus in the Bible. You cannot say you are sorry for stealing from people if you do not give them back what they stole. There is restitution. There has to be consequences to the people who are involved in this, so that we can begin to feel safe. And I'm telling Kenyans today, Mark Bichachi and my family and those related to me are not setting foot in a Chandarana until
and I'm sure a lot of people share that opinion with you, and I'm sure that there are those who disagree with you. One of them being Wakili in studio.
Yes,
now,
exactly,
Wakili Biko,
exactly.
as much as you're going to react to Mark Bichachi's statement there, it seems that the staff in question did not act alone. It seems that she received a directive maybe from her bosses. Who knows?
That would be a presumption. And Mark is proceeding on two major presumptions. That one, that Chandarana as an outlet or as a supermarket has an effective communication department.
Yes.
That is one presumption that he's making. And then the second presumption that Mark Bichachi is making is that Chandarana supermarket ought to employ people who are specialists to run that particular department. You see, Chandarana supermarket is a privately owned entity, and they have no obligation whatsoever in law to employ someone who is a specialist to run whatever department that they have within that department. Now, those are two presumptions that Mark Bichachi is making. Yeah? So,
let's talk about the first presumption that he made. This is a supermarket that has a total of about 13 branches in Nairobi alone.
Yes.
They have other branches across the country.
Yes.
It's a big deal business. It's the oldest supermarket. If they don't have a basic communication strategy, what does this say about this kind of a supermarket in the first place?
But my question is there an obligation? Do they have an obligation, whether it is legal or whatever obligation it is? Do they have any obligation whatsoever that they need to have a functional communication department, or what Mark Bichachi says, a communication strategy? Yeah,
I think if they had one, they couldn't have this kind of a problem in the first place. And
you see, that is what is ailing them. And probably it is because of the lack of a proper communication strategy or a communication department that they're now getting themselves into the problem that they're getting themselves into. Yeah. And then secondly, is the presumption that Chandarana Supermarket ought to employ people, you know, of a particular training, or people who have undergone a particular training to run that particular department. Now, if or whether they have the obligation to employ people of a particular caliber, or people who are qualified, who have a particular qualification, now that is neither here nor there, and it is for them now to come and tell us that, hey, look here, it is because we did not employ someone of that training, and that is why we are suffering, the mistakes that we suffered that has led to all these, But then, if you ask me legally, then Chandarana do not have any legal obligation to set up that particular department, or they do not have any legal obligation to employ people of a, it is not like we are talking about Chandarana being a public entity. We are talking about a private entity that will be run according to the way the managers or whatever the directors
so you
will
still believe the two statements we've heard from the supermarket, the two apologies they made, is enough?
If you look at even one of the apologies that the supermarket has tried to has given to Kenyans, if you look at one of those apologies, it still has grammatical mistakes. So probably it is the inadequacy in English proficiency is something that runs within.
Wakili, don't you think we're missing the bigger picture of racial profiling? Do you think that the apologies are enough and they shouldn't face any kind of prosecution on this?
The bigger picture about racial profiling is a discussion that Kenyans may want us to engage in without necessarily looking at other issues that may be affecting this particular supermarket. So, in as much as on the face of it, we are aware that there was the mention of the Wazungus. Then there's definitely there's now the other angle about the African. But then, if we can open our eyes and try and interrogate as to whether Chandarana Supermarket indeed had the structures that we presume that such kind of a supermarket ought to have, then we may we may be looking at these things from another perspective altogether.
Mark, I'll give you time to react to that point of view from Wakili.
Let me tell you, either the good Wakili is the most forgiving person ever, or he's trying to impress the MD. Perhaps this is the lawyer you need. But I'll bring this into the proper context. Inappropriate behavior does not necessarily have to be illegal. Okay? If I come to this show and I sneer at the Kenyan people, I will have acted inappropriately and not illegally. Number two, whether you have a marketing department or not, the fact that you set up a business that serves the public tells us conclusively that you have at least the responsibility of human decency. Whether you hire the most illiterate person or literate person, It is incumbent upon your person and your institution to behave itself with the highest standards of decorum. This is why we have civilization in this country. This is not some banana republic. And therefore the expectation above and beyond the law has to be that the Kenyan people, every Kenyan citizen, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, Latino, whatever you may have, must be treated with the same dignity. We must understand that it is not for naught that we bled and died in this country so that we could govern ourselves, so that no longer would a Kikuyu be subservient to a white person, a Kamba subservient to a white person, but we would look each other eye to eye and say we have the same opportunities, same privileges, and same standards in this country. The moment any person in your organization, including my own staff who work to me, ever stand up at a point and say that they will give special privileges to people because of race, tribe, or creed, then I am equally guilty because the buck stops with me. And this is the standard we need to apply. Let's stop playing legalese. We have been abused not just as people working at Chandarana or shoppers of Chandarana. We've been abused as a nation. And we need to have enough self-esteem as a nation to say that will not happen on our grounds.
And Wakili Biko, this is a matter that is, of course, it's not just Mark Bichacho is angry about this. This is something that has attracted, some sort of a national outrage. Don't you believe it needs some further investigation? Because up to now, we still don't know the nationality of the one who authored the mail itself. The people who believe that the person who authored is not even Kenyan in the first place.
One, let me make a clarification. One, I'm not saying that a mistake hasn't been done.
Yes.
A mistake may have been done. And until after we ascertain that the mistake has been done, we can't then start, we just can't start just castigating. An investigation has to be done, just like you've rightly put. And once an investigation has been done, and the intention of that particular email has been established, then we can conclusively say that that Chandarana supermarket or the person who sent that email or that particular department that was supposed to, have been in charge of that particular department, then must have done a mistake. Now that is one thing. Then two, my contention is that a mistake cannot be cured by doing another mistake. Yes, we can't cure one mistake by doing another mistake. And that is now the problem that Kenyans and probably the county government through Governor Sonko are doing. A mistake has been done, or there's an allegation that a mistake has been done. But until when a proper investigation has been done and we can conclusively say that that mistake has been that mistake has been done, then we can't sit down as Kenyans and start castigating Chandarana even before proper investigations are done. On the face of it, probably Kenyans are convicted or they are convinced that a mistake has been done. But then let the due process of the law let the law take its course, so that an investigation, if the county government ought to do an investigation, then let the county government, through the leadership of Governor Sonko, come out and do an investigation, interrogate the leadership, interrogate the people who work at Chandarana, and make a determination whether there is a policy that has been put in place that people of a particular race are to be discriminated in either the award of the vouchers, or if there is any sort of competition that is to be undertaken by Chandarana.
So actually the apology is not enough, right? You've gone the investigation route now.
The apology by Chandarana in itself is a step in the right direction. It is actually the first step, because
but we have to wait for a conclusive investigation.
Yes,
I think that will be a last. Yeah, that will be a last word. Mark, let me give you a minute before you wrap up.
My last word is this: what the good lawyer is saying is erroneous in this perspective. The email in and of itself is racist. The only thing we are within the entire structure of Chandarana. But has racism occurred? I can tell you here and now, without batting an eyelid, that it has. Do we as a nation face an identity crisis, an esteem crisis? Yes, we do. Do we need to take a stand? Yes, we do. Because we need to live in a nation where we can never be judged by the color of our skin, but we will be judged by the content of our character. It must happen. If Martin Luther King said that 40, 50 years ago, what business do we have in 2018 defending a racist?
Well said, Mark. I think you're entitled to your own opinion there. Many thanks for your input. Of course, we do hope the relevant authorities are watching and they're going to conduct proper investigation on this matter. Many thanks, Mark Bichach, for your input as a communication consultant and lawyer Ashioya Biko. And that brings us to the end of our program tonight. Many thanks.